Welcome. Today we delve into a critical area of marketing, rural marketing research. As India's rural markets continue to evolve and present significant opportunities, understanding how to effectively conduct research in these unique environments is paramount for any aspiring marketing professional. This module, with the knowledge and tools necessary to navigate the complexities of researching and rural consumers and markets. By the end of this session, you will be able to first understand the unique challenges and processes involved in conducting marketing research specifically in rural India. Second, identify suitable qualitative and quantitative tools along with appropriate sampling techniques tailored for rural context. Third, learn how to design effective research instruments like questionnaire and discussion guides that resonate with rural respondents. And finally, recognize the role and importance of specialized techniques like participatory rural appraisal, in short PRA, and visual scaling tools in gathering reliable data from rural communities. Marketing research is the bedrock of any successful marketing plan, guiding strategic and operational decisions. In the context of rural markets, which are distinct from urban centers and constantly evolving, research becomes even more crucial. It's essential to gain deep insights into rural India's unique culture, habits, and lifestyle. Before launching products, setting prices, deciding distribution channels, or planning promotions, the fundamental 4 P's of marketing. Companies must conduct thorough research. Furthermore, rural consumers' behavior is rapidly changing, influenced by increasing access to mobile phones, the internet, and media. Research helps companies stay tuned to these shifts. However, conducting research in rural areas presents significant challenges. Firstly, obtaining reliable real-time data can be difficult. Secondly, literacy levels may be lower, making standard written surveys less effective. Respondents might not understand complex questions or be familiar with urban concepts, affecting their responses to visual aids and rating scales. Thirdly, many standard research tools are based on Western models and may not be culturally appropriate or effective. Lastly, the sheer geographical dispersion and often remote nature of the rural areas make data collection logistically demanding and costly. Therefore, rural marketing research requires a distinct, adapted approach. Like any systematic inquiry, rural marketing research follows a structured process. It typically begins when a company identifies an information gap leading to the definition of a problem. The research aims to bridge this gap and find solutions. As shown here, the key steps involve defining the objectives, deciding the research budget, designing the research plan, planning the sampling strategy, designing the research instrument, followed by data collection, analysis, and reporting. We will now explore the initial crucial steps in detail. The first and most critical step is defining the objective. This involves clarifying both business objectives and research objectives. Business objectives articulate why the research is needed and how the findings will be used for company goals. For example, to design a new tractor model suitable for small rural landholdings, or to establish an effective distribution network in specific rural districts. Research objectives, on the other hand, specify what information the research needs to uncover to help meet those business goals. Examples include to understand the purchasing criteria of rural customers for tractors below 35 horsepower, or to identify distinct segments of rural consumers based on their lifestyle and media habits. Next, We address the research budget. Gathering and analyzing information inevitably involves cost. Determining the budget involves two key considerations. First, estimating the value of the information. How critical will the insights be for making informed business decisions? Second, setting a spending limit, defining the maximum financial resources the company is willing to allocate. Once the budget is finalized, the research plan, including the methods chosen, must be designed to operate within these financial constraints. Step 3 involves designing the research. This is essentially creating the blueprint for collecting the necessary information. The choice of research approach hinges on three core factors. The purpose of the study. Is it to explore a new area, describe a situation, or determine cause and effect? Second, the nature of the data required. Do we need numerical data or in-depth understanding? Third, the source of data. Will we collect new data or use existing information? Based on these, research can be categorized by purpose: exploratory, descriptive, or causal; data nature, such as quantitative, qualitative; and data source, like primary and secondary. Let's look at research categorized by purpose. Exploratory research is used when managers have limited understanding of a problem or situation. It helps gain initial insights. Descriptive research follows exploratory research to provide a more detailed understanding or profile of a market or consumer group. Causal research, often experimental, is used to test cause and effect relationship, like whether a specific promotion increases sales, often before making large investments. For instance, entering a new rural market might start with an exploratory pilot study, followed by a larger descriptive survey to understand market potential, and finally, an experimental test launch in a few villages to gauge success probability. Research design is also defined by the nature of data needed. Quantitative research focuses on numerical data and statistical analysis. It uses structured tools like questionnaire with closed-ended questions. The output is measurable: how many, how often, think frequency tables, market share percentage, or statistical tests. Qualitative research, conversely, seeks to understand thoughts, feelings, motivations, and behaviors in depth. It uses unstructured or semi structured methods like open ended interviews and discussions. The goal is rich, detailed understanding the why behind the numbers. Qualitative research in rural areas often employs face-to-face methods tailored to the context. Key techniques includes participatory rural appraisal, in short PRA, involving community members in creating visual maps or diagrams of their lives and environment to gather local knowledge collaboratively. Focus group discussions, in short FGDs, bringing together a small group, like from 6 to 10, of similar individuals to discuss a specific topic guided by a moderator. In depth interviews, one on one conversations allowing researchers to explore an individual's perspective, lifestyle, and experiences in detail. DIARDS, interviews conducted with two individuals simultaneously, often relevant for joint decision making, like spouses discussing household purchases. Slice of life observation. Researchers observe participants in their natural environment, like home, work, to understand real behavior. Photo ethnography, using photographs of daily life to document and understand behaviors, effectively creating a visual narrative. Let's briefly compare two common qualitative methods. PRA and FGD. As summarized here, PRA typically involves a large diverse group, uses both verbal and non-verbal expression, like drawing. The moderator has a limited role, focuses on attitude or behavior change. Analysis is done on the spot by participants and findings are cross-validated within the community. FGD, however, uses a small similar group, relies mainly on verbal expression, often dominated by outspoken numbers. The moderator plays an active role driving discussion, focuses more on insights for taking action, analysis is done later by researchers, and validation requires multiple FGDs. Often, the most insightful research combines both qualitative and quantitative methods. Researchers might start with qualitative methods to explore an issue, understand the context, and generate hypotheses. Then, quantitative methods are used to measure the extent of the findings, test hypotheses, and generalize result to a larger population. For instance, in less understood sectors like rural health or insurance, qualitative exploration is often the first step. In well-researched sector like fast-moving consumer goods, quantitative surveys might be the starting point. Importantly, there is a growing trend in rural research to use quantitative tools for measuring satisfaction, tracking brands, and market segmentation, reflecting the increasing sophistication of rural markets. Finally, research design considers the sources of data. Primary research involves collecting new, original data specifically for the research projects in hand. This is done through methods like survey, interviews, focus groups, and observation conducted directly with the target audience. Secondary research utilizes existing data that was previously collected by the others for different purposes. This data comes from published reports, government databases, industry associations, academic journals, and online sources. In rural research, secondary data is often useful for background information like population or demographics, but may lack specific consumer behavior details. Several organizations provide valuable secondary data relevant to the rural India. Some key sources include the Census of India for comprehensive demographic data, NCAER, full form National Council for Applied Economics Research, for large scale survey on income, demographics, and ownership of durables, NSSO, National Sample Survey Organization, for data on consumption expenditure patterns, CSO, Central Statistical Organization, for state level economic and demographic data, State Statistical Abstract, and District Statistical Handbooks for more localized data. Others like ICDS, CMIE, government websites like goidirectory.nic.in, ICAR for agricultural data, panchayat offices for village specifics, and reports from marketing research companies. These sources provide a foundation for understanding the rural landscape before initiating primary research. Once the research is set, we move to step 4, sampling. This involves deciding who will participate in the study and how many. In qualitative research, the sample size is usually small. The focus is on depth and achieving saturation, the point where new interviews yield no new significant insights. Purposive sampling is common, where researchers deliberately select individuals who are knowledgeable about the topic. Another key method is snowball sampling. Here, the researcher starts with one or a few initial contacts, perhaps suggested by a village leader, interviews them, and then asks them to recommend other suitable participants. This chain referral process helps find relevant respondents, and build trust, encouraging honest sharing. For quantitative research, which often aims to generalize findings to a larger population, sampling is more structured. A common technique in geographically dispersed rural areas is multi-stage area sampling. This involves a step-by-step process. Divide the country into zones: north, south, east, west. Second, select states within those zones. Third, select districts and then blocks within those states. And finally, select villages within the chosen blocks. Villages might be selected based on criteria like population size, distance from highways, or primary occupation. This staged approach is necessary because comprehensive, up-to-date list of all individuals or households are often unavailable in rural areas. When specific criteria for village selection aren't defined, the probability proportion to size method is often used. The advantage of PPS is that larger villages have a higher probability of being selected, reflecting their greater population weight. However, if a fixed number of households are then sampled within each selected village, every household across both large and small selected villages ultimately has an equal chance of being included in final sample, ensuring fairness. Once villages are selected, we need to select specific households. Ideally, probability methods like simple random, systematic, or stratified random sampling are used, but these require a complete list of households, which is often unavailable or outdated in rural areas. Creating such a list via a listing exercise can be time consuming and expensive. A practical alternative involves dividing the village into sections: north, south, east, west, center as a starting point. From each starting point, the interviewer follows the right hand rule. They walk along a path and select every nth household, every fifth or tenth that falls on their right side, until the required number of household is reached. If the village has distinct socioeconomic groups, quotas might be set to ensure representation from each group. Often, within a selected household, there might be multiple individuals who meet the criteria for the interview. For example, multiple adults who use a certain product. To ensure a random and unbiased selection of one respondent from that household, the Kish grid is used. The process involves first listing all eligible number in the household, usually by descending age. Second, using a predefined Kish grid table. The interviewer find the column corresponding to the household number they are visiting. For example, fourth household, and the row corresponding to the total number of eligible members in that household. For example, 5 eligible members. The number found at the intersection of that column and row, say 3, indicates which person from the ordered list, the third person, should be interviewed. This method provides a systematic and fair way to choose the final respondents. Let's talk about sample size. In qualitative research, the emphasis is on the richness and completeness of information, not statistical representation. The sample size is determined by the concept of information saturation or redundancy. Interviewing continues until no significantly new insights are emerging. This size also depends on the number of distinct segments being studied. For example, users, aware, non-users, lapsed users. Therefore, qualitative sample sizes are flexible and based on the researcher's judgment during fieldwork rather than being fixed beforehand. In quantitative research, determining the sample size is more technical process, often using statistical formulas. especially when estimating population proportion, like the percentage of users. Using sample determination formula, the sample size can be determined. You just need to get to finalize some values like n, total population, if known. Z. Z is score based on desired confidence level, for example 1.96 for 95% confidence. P. Estimated proportion of interest. Q, which is 1 minus P, and E, the acceptable margin of error, for example 0.05. For example, with 95% confidence and 5% of margin of error, this formula gives a required sample size of approximately 384. Because ideal random sampling is often difficult in rural areas, researchers might increase the calculated sample size somewhat to compensate for potential biases introduced by using methods like multi-stage or quota sampling. The final step we'll cover today is step 5, designing the research instrument, the tool used to collect data from respondents. There are two main types. First, discussion guide, used in qualitative research. It's a semi-structured list of open-ended questions and topics to be covered. It allows flexibility and includes probes, prompts for the interviewer to encourage deeper response and explores topics thoroughly. Second, questionnaire, used in quantitative research. It's a highly structured instrument consisting mainly of close-ended questions where respondents choose from predefined answers options like rating scale or multiple choices. This ensures consistency and allows for easy numerical analysis. Dear learners, we will be continuing this lecture further in the next video. Thank you for listening this.